Welcome to a DeFi Dojo AMA. Today we're joined by Misha 0x. He is a core contributor for Vaultcraft. Misha, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a quick description of what Vaultcraft is?
Sure. It's a security-first DeFi protocol that allows you to customize automated DeFi strategies. It's deployed on the EVM and soon to be on the SVM, but allow users to create their own strategies, but we also in-house create our own vaults. We call them smart vaults that earn yield on automated DeFi strategies using over 50 plus DeFi protocols on the EVM, such as Aave, Compound, your traditional type protocols. And we have a call option model that allows users to farm call options on top of these smart vaults as well. So you're earning base yield on smart vaults, but you're also earning call options, which you can redeem for 25% return immediately.
Okay, so that was a mouthful. Let's sort of break that into pieces. First, you said it's effectively like a smart vault protocol on EVM and SVM. What does SVM mean?
On Solana VM.
Thought so. Okay, that's really cool. Didn't know you guys were coming to Solana. Now, on EVM, you said there are a few things happening. One of them is you're farming the native strategy, but then there's also this additional component to it. Can you break that part down again?
Sure. So what we did was we forked the Curve contracts. So Curve, as we all know, is an AMM. They have the CRV token that you can lock stake for up to 4 years, which allows you to get vote escrow VCX, vote escrow CRV, and that allows you to vote on CRV emissions in pools on Curve. So we're applying the same sort of mechanism, but to these smart vaults. And within our smart vaults, we have these gauges similar to what Curve has, and these gauges are distributed call options. We call them OVCX, and there's a linear decay in OVCX over the next 10 years, or roughly 10 years since we started last December, that the gauges are emitting OVCX every week to every vault where users vote on where the emissions are going to.
Okay, now there's a lot of protocols that have this vote escrowed style, but only a few of them have the vote escrowed mechanism with the options portion. And you said these options portion have a linear decay. Can you, for people who might be like me, who often forget how this works, can you explain that to me like I'm a toddler? So you'll get the OVCX, right.
Yeah, so users earn OVCX. So let's take a step back. We have these smart vaults. Anyone can deposit anyone can deposit any asset. So zapping any asset into these vaults to immediately start earning yields. If there is OVCX that's being distributed to the vaults, you can go to where you are right now and click exercise ETH of OVCX, but we also have this all on Optimism and Arbitrum. What is happening is that users are getting an option to buy the VCX token, which is the governance token, at a 25% discount. And
with either ETH, OPT, or ARB.
With specifically WETH on Ethereum, Optimism, or Arbitrum. So if you open any of these, it'll say that there's a 25% discounts, and then you'll be able to swap WETH for VCX, and then you can sell it immediately.
Okay, so then you get a 25% or whatever. It's not actually 25% because you're getting a 25% discount. Right. Yeah, exactly. Then you get a bonus. So it's a way to realize the emissions through an options mechanism, and there've been a few protocols that have done this before. Cool. Exactly. So that's the additional yield component to these strategy vaults. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Now you guys have a bunch of these things from other protocols. So I've seen like Sommelier their own strategy vault, I guess, protocol, and you also had a few other strategy vaults on here. Can you explain to me why there are strategy vaults on your strategy vault protocol?
Yeah, sure. So we developed this in-house methodology that we use to choose strategies or create these smart vaults using protocols with our own strategies on the top. So let me just break this down. So Smart vaults have strategies that leverage protocols like, let's say, for example, compound money markets, that we use our own strategies like auto compounding, specifically, let's say, for this money market, that allows users to earn additional yield. So for example, in this smart vault for compounds, we can deploy a compound money market for, let's say, WETH. Users can deposit into that money market, and the interest that's earned in the money market is harvested and compounded or redeposited back into the vault. So you're actually boosting your yields. And these sort of strategies we use across several money markets. That's one example of a strategy, but we deploy also leverage strategies. We also deploy leverage staking strategies. We're kind of like a DeFi strategy shop, if you say.
And who can launch these strategies?
Anyone can, actually. So it's a permissionless protocol. We actually have a feature that allows users to deploy their own vaults using our endorsed protocols and strategies, but we primarily list the ones that we develop in-house on our dev.
Right, because if anyone can list a strategy, you could imagine a lot of clutter and a lot of repetition and a lot of like micro TVL strategies that just clog up the UI. So in this case, you guys are developing in-house strategies, launching them. And so like I'm looking at this new one that launched, I think, very recently, the LBTC vault, and this has just a bunch of points associated with it, plus a VAP. Can you explain sort of what's going on with this Lombard BTC vault?
Sure. So the Lombard BTC Smart Vault is the first multi-strategy vault that we've released. And what this means is that this Smart Vault in particular allows users to get exposure to multiple strategies. So users deposit their LBTC, and then the vault manager, which is us in this case, but also our infrastructure is designed such that there can be any third-party smart vault manager. But in this particular case, we manage the capital allocated in the strategies. And so there's a whole backend set up such that we can rebalance strategies when necessary based on methodology also created in-house. And what's happening with points is that because we have several strategies that are plugged into Pendle, Zero Lend, and we're using the LRT BTC tokens that are on Babylon and Corn. Since those particular tokens and protocols are offering points, we can as well. And so we keep track of all that in a database. And then when users deposit, we're essentially accounting for points and user deposits together.
Can you break down for us, like, you kind of went through it. You said there's Zero Lend involved. There's some Pendle strategies. Can you kind of go down the list one by one and kind of just tell us what's going on behind the scenes with these different strategies?
Sure. So with Zero Lend, we're depositing into the LBTC money market on Zero Lend. So you're lending out your LBTC, particularly in that scenario. With EtherFi, the EtherFi managed strategy, we're actually just minting eBTC with LBTC. So that particular strategy is earning points from EtherFi, but also the base yield from EtherFi on eBTC. We have several Pendle LP strategies where we're depositing into as well. And for Pendle BTC LP, we're depositing into the Pendle BTC LP market with a maturity date in December. We're doing the same for March next year. And we also have a Corn LP on Pendle that we're depositing into as well. And so all of these have different returns. And if you're familiar, or if you're not familiar with Pendle, Pendle is this essentially like yield marketplace where you can deposit and speculate on yield. In this specific case, we're depositing into the liquidity pools that are associated with those yield markets. It can be quite complicated to explain. So if anyone is actually interested in learning more about it, I advise to go on their platform because they have like a very good educational platform. But these are particularly liquidity pools on Pendle that we're depositing into and auto compounding the yield.
Cool. So this vault is aiming to kind of be this like happy medium between earning real yield. So like the first strategy of Zero Lend, lending out your BTC, earning a yield on top of that, and you're actually lending out LBTC. So in addition to earning a yield while lending out your asset, you're also going to be earning Lombard points. I see there's a 3x multiplier on that. You're earning a Babylon, which I don't think there's any multiples on, like, or multipliers on that. So you're just earning kind of like the 1x multiplier. And then some of these other strategies, for example, like Pendle, you're earning Pendle emissions, you're earning swap fees in addition to the points that are going on as well. Is this vault, like kind of got any advantageous multipliers? I see 3x Lombard, 1x Babylon, 0.7x Corn, x Symbiotic, and so on and so on. Is this vault kind of in combination with any of these underlying protocols? And is this a particularly favorable place to get BTC either point yield or real yield because of it?
It actually is a great place to deposit your LBTC or even like zap any of your crypto into the vault to get exposure to not only the LBTC yield across the board. So we're depositing into the highest yield generating LBTC strategies out there, but also exposure to points. So we live in a world in DeFi where there's just points popping up everywhere now. And we realized this and we built a product such that users have like a very simple way of getting exposure to all of these different point programs associated with different protocols, and having us basically do the groundwork and basically rewarding users with those points, which are essentially future tokens from those protocols, right? So the product is designed for, let's say, a not so savvy DeFi user, but wants that juicy yield in DeFi. In this case, particularly for liquid Bitcoin, which is very much part of this whole BTC-fi narrative that's coming up right now.
Yeah, and
good.
This is one of the first kind of BTC denominated vaults as we're seeing this new kind of proliferation of BTC restaking, or BTC-fi as you put it. For maybe those that are a little bit less familiar, do you mind just kind of like telling us a little bit more about your perspective on BTC restaking, on BTC-fi, so to speak? And if you can tie it into any of the specific points that people are earning while using this vault, that would be fantastic as well.
Sure. So historically, we've had Wrapped Bitcoin, which was the representation of Bitcoin on EVM. We've been using it in DeFi, which hasn't necessarily had high yield because mostly it's been earning less than like 1% in money markets. Obviously, it's included in liquidity pools, and you can do some interesting things there in terms of like auto compounding pools. But this is the first time I would say in this case, particularly for Lombard BTC, where it's a 1-to-1 backed Bitcoin derivative, that is an ERC20, which means that it opens the door for it being plugged into any like DeFi or EVM protocol. And liquid restaked Bitcoin, which is being facilitated by Symbiotic Eigenlayer. And this is basically an ERC20 that's being restaked. And with the points, we're able to actually reward users because these specific like LBTC tokens are being restaked, and the AVS rewards that are being associated, the points that are associated with each of these protocols are being tracked and monitored by not only Eigenlayer and Symbiotic, but also us. And so like we're able to actually track and then reward users in the future with those points that will transfer into tokens.
What does non-custodial mean in this sense? So we worked with, or at least spoken with, a number of previous protocols that are semi-similar, and all of them try to create a non-custodial vault ecosystem where these, where the underlying assets can be used and put into strategies. What is your mechanism for a non-custodial strategy vault?
Sure. So the vault infrastructure that we've set up, specifically for the multi-strategy vaults, it allows users to deposit into a smart contract. The smart contract then is used to allocate across different strategies. There is no custody of any of these assets that we hold at any time. This is all controlled by smart contracts. We have a multi-sig that we use to sign off on any deallocation or reallocation of funds. So everything that is actually being deposited into the vault, there's a vault share that the user is minted. That vault share represents the capital that's within the vault. And then all of the reallocation of the capital in the strategies or in the vault happens by basically us proposing the different allocations through the multi-sig. So it's as if it's basically the funds are being deposited into the smart contracts, and then we're using our multi-sig to shuffle things around.
Can you talk a little bit about the different maybe trust assumptions that are there? You know, like you said that this is a vault that's going to be allocating to at least these 4 or 5 different strategies, and kind of making value decisions in terms of, okay, like the LBTC LP is outperforming something else, or kind of like making those decisions in terms of, one, what's the best strategy, but then two, like the user trust in that their funds is kind of being put to the best use. You kind of just break down how your guys' architecture deals with that?
Sure. So we actually have a very good explainer section in our docs that walks through how we do our rebalancing, but also just risk and yield optimization. So the trust factor is very much user that lies within the user relying on Vaultcraft doing what is necessary in terms of risk and yield optimization. So we have a lot of, let's say, like circuit breakers that we've baked in, let's say, into how we manage the capital that's deposited into the vaults. So we take a look at liquidations, we take a look at, basically everything that you could possibly imagine within decentralized exchanges, AMMs, how capital is being shuffled around. We even use an AI-driven protocol called Guardrail to monitor exploits. We have also an in-house system that monitors basically the same thing. So we're very security first focused here when it comes to like managing users' funds.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of risks in general, you guys have 4 different audits, it looks like, from Paladin to BlockSec, but also Code for Arena, which is, you want to explain sort of what your thesis behind auditing is and why you have multiple different auditors?
Sure. I think that also like requires a bit of like a backstory and like why we built Vaultcraft to begin with. So when we first launched, we launched as Popcorn back in 2021. You may have heard of us. We did like a massive airdrop, but we launched as a yield optimizer that was funding charitable organizations, and we were building yield optimizers specifically for stablecoins that earned yield on user deposits. What we realized was that we weren't scaling our product offering fast enough, and then the bear market hit, and then we had to basically readjust, and we ultimately pivoted to Vaultcraft, which is this DeFi heavy infrastructure. The thing is, we realized that the amount of research and work, capital, human resources that's required to go build one of these, let's say, automated DeFi strategies is pretty extensive. The most important part is actually not only the work, the auditing, the checking of the smart contracts, stress test vigorously, because as we've seen in DeFi, there's so many exploits that happen for protocols that have been audited multiple times. So there's no max in terms of like audits that you can get. You should always be auditing your smart contracts. So we wanted to build a protocol that was super audited, and the reason why we used Code Arena, which is a very interesting auditing firm that basically facilitates an auditing contest where like 200 white hats, or at least in our case, 200 white hats, reviewed our code, scrutinized it heavily. Most of the bugs that were found were, low to medium severity, but there were some that were high severity. And then we fixed all the bugs, and, you kind of do like a round 2 with them as well. So in my opinion, working with a lot of white hats or white hat hackers, rather than just 1 or 2 security firms that have 2 or 3 people looking at your code, is much better, because you're just basically exposing your smart contracts to as many people that are kind of professional in looking at your code, rather than you just doing internal testing. So that's why we use C4, but we also use Paladin, BlockSec, Salo Security. And we've used other contract or auditing firms in the past, but those were for previous contracts.
Yeah, I think there's one major example that stands out to me was Euler, right? They had a phenomenal set of audits. Then they had one final piece of code. It was audited by Sherlock prior to Sherlock taking the C4 mechanism, and it was only audited by one person, and that one person missed something critical. And so now Sherlock has a sort of open sourced method that Coderina has. And as you mentioned, it's one of the most useful types of audits that everyone should be doing if they have a large protocol, because it just means you're getting multiple eyes on your smart contracts.
Everyone should use them. It was honestly like the best auditing experience from my perspective, at least. I mean, obviously you have like very respectable firms like Open Zeppelin. I mean, Paladin's great. We use them too. And they do like a very rigorous job. They give you a report. But like Coderina was like, imagine 200 people providing you the same report. I mean, it gets a bit crazy when you're reviewing everything, but I mean, you can kind of narrow it down in terms of like high severity bugs and then focus or prioritize everything else after.
Well, it's awesome. So currently, like the big, I would say flagship opportunity on there is this Lombard Vault, right? Now, where do you guys see yourself going sort of with this and then after this? Also, I have so many questions. In conjunction with this, these are vault shares, so they're composable. You can do things with them. Do you know if there's going to be a path towards composability? Are you talking to any other protocols that might want to use your shares?
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. So there's another product that we're building, which I can't say so much about, but I can say that it's stablecoin related, let's say, and the composability factor of our vaults and how they can be used in, let's say, liquidity pools or on different AMMs opens the door to a lot of like what we can do in DeFi, and it's very much, you know, part of like this whole like DeFi Lego system. So we chose to build using the vault standard, and that was a strategic decision because we knew that there would be a lot more 4626 protocols, or, you know, the EIP 4626 standard that was introduced by Rari a few years ago. But there's basically so much composability with not only money markets, but automated LP farming on Yearn with Pendle as well. I mean, there's a lot that's going on, and we realized that like once we deploy these vaults and we create our own sort of like vault market, that there's several of these vaults that can be used in conjunction or as like Lego pieces with other protocols, which we're currently working on right now.
So you guys said you can't talk too much about it, but there may be some future protocol that you guys are either building or deeply associated with that will have potentially some sort of stablecoin adjacent mechanism. To me, that jumps out as like a CDP protocol, but I'm not going to make you tell me exactly what it is. But okay, so for those of you who don't know, 4626 compliant vault shares are effectively a composable receipt token for your deposit. So you can take that anywhere in DeFi, you can LP them, you can collateralize them, you can do whatever you can do with your typical 20 token, you can do with these things.
Exactly. And so, you know, for example, for the LBTC Smart Vault, you have a LBTC vault share. Imagine you could take that vault share and pair it with like USTC, or let's just say LBTC, and have a pool on Balancer and Curve, and we could incentivize it with Curve emissions or Balancer emissions and do the whole bribe thing as well. So it gets very interesting. We haven't done that yet, as we just launched the vaults today, and but it is definitely like on the table. And like I said, with this like stablecoin product that we're going to be building out, there's a whole ecosystem that's sort of planned based on the fact that there's a vault share.
One question I had was, you know, BTC Fi is very new, and I'd love to hear kind of what you think, you know, either estimates for this vault or what you think BTC Fi in general might be yielding. Like, for example, I can see that the LBTC LP on Pendle is getting something like 18% APR. We don't know, of course, you know, what Lombard points might be worth, what Babylon points might be worth, what Symbiotic points might be worth, and the others that you're getting by being, you know, part of this vault. But I know many folks are kind of looking for the next big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people had quite good experiences with like EigenLayer. People have had quite good experiences with Renzo Season 1, EtherFi Season 1, 2. You know, there's been kind of a lot of points, and to some degree, I think people are a little saturated, a little tired of that kind of meta. On the other hand, if you are choosing the right ones and you are early to them and you are earning, you know, these kind of points in a smart way where it's not necessarily costing you something, but instead you're earning yield while earning points, it can be phenomenally, you know, profitable. Do you think that this like 18% that we're seeing on Pendle LPs, do you think that's something that's sustainable? Is there a target APR that you are aiming for with this vault? It's incredibly exciting, the idea of being able to leverage this stuff up or pair it and, you know, as Steven said, get into kind of the DeFi Lego blocks, but it's also interesting to kind of know what you guys are aiming for with this vault for someone who might be thinking about depositing in it.
I think for the next few months, at least, for sure. I mean, given that like BTC Fi and all these markets and vault products are coming out, and sort of crafting these strategies based, you know, not only on just straight up like lending out Bitcoin or liquid Bitcoin, but I mean strategies that are capitalizing on swap fees, let's say on Pendle or in automated market makers or liquidity pools. I mean, that's the interesting thing about DeFi, right? So you can deploy a strategy that can be equally as successful in a bear market or a bull market. More so in the bull market, but I mean, on a bad day, let's say a liquidity pool or an AMM can be having enormous trading fees that something like our smart vaults can capitalize on and generate yield for users. And it's the same thing for on a good day as well. So I think specifically with BTC Fi, I think we're still early. I think that the yields will ultimately come down over time as they do. I mean, there's going to be more capital that's going to be flowing in, but at the same time, specifically for, let's say, these type of auto compounding LP strategies that we have, the yields can remain quite high. They will be variable for sure. I think a baseline or a good reference point here would probably be, you know, wrapped Bitcoin returns, which are quite low comparatively, but I think like over time that could be like a baseline, but I don't think we're going to hit that like anytime soon. I think there's going to be more protocols like ours, like Pendle, that are going to be coming out and capitalizing on BTC.
Very cool. And, you know, this is kind of a fortuitous time to be launching this product, since I believe Babylon's increasing their caps sometime, like maybe it's on the 9th, or anyway, sometime soon. Symbiotic, I believe, as well, will be increasing their caps. So this could be a very kind of interesting time to jump in to this vault and, you know, be earning what is a very competitive, you know, yield on BTC before you even start considering what these kind of more speculative points might be, you know, what a Lombard point might be, what a Babylon point might be, what a Symbiotic and the others as well might be. So I am just still want to just drill in on one thing so I can really kind of understand it is, you know, what are you guys optimizing for? Are you optimizing for points? Are you optimizing for yield? Is it some kind of like hybrid of the two, right? There's 5 different strategies here. Do you have 5 different strategies so you can kind of diversify, not be too concentrated? Or is it kind of choosing where the best yield, and I mean yield in the broad sense of both real yield and point yield, where that's occurring at any given time?
I would say in our case, points are consequential. We're going after real yields. I think from my personal perspective, I mean, as a farmer, I think when points came along end of last year, or I guess sometime last year, I think it was great because we're in a bear market scenario and the promise of future tokens was a great way to incentivize LPs. And, you know, I think like if you were a, you know, heavy allocator, let's say for any sort of like LRT and EigenLayer, you probably would have done well. But from my perspective, I think like that was really the only airdrop, let's say, that was like that really crushed it. I might be completely wrong about that, but I know for like EigenLayer, if you were like LPing LRTs like very early on, like you got the Eigen token, and you know, I think they paid out like quite well, given that the liquidity just like happened recently for Eigen. But we go after real yields and safe yields. You know, any protocol that we endorse to our due diligence on and incorporate into the smart vaults, you know, it follows a certain methodology. just like, for example, any TVL like north of like 1 million, audit like multiple audits on the protocol. We look at the teams, we look at how long the protocols have existed. But ultimately, I think like the market is becoming more sophisticated, and I think yield is the most important part of any like DeFi product right now. So if you can get 18% variable APY, variable obviously, but 18% at this moment in time for a derivative of Bitcoin, that is so much higher than anything we've ever had in DeFi thus far. And that's super exciting. So like the fact that we can even generate that using several of the strategies underneath the hood with Pendle, Corn, Zero Lend, and more markets or strategies that we're going to incorporate, I think is what we're really after here.
Right, because you're not even getting just the 18%. You're getting 18%, which I believe is like one part base, which you call base VAPY, and then one part reward VAPY, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, that is the option governance token. And
yeah, so the base yield is 18%. We have OVCX that is currently being voted on in the protocol if you're a vote escrow VCX holder, which this week seems like it'll turn out to be pretty significant for emissions. So you'll have OVCX, you'll have the base yield, and you also have the points. So it's really a lucrative LBTC or like BTC product, if you want to call it that, that's being released into the market right now.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see like what the point valuationers, myself included, will end up valuing all these different points at, and how those numbers shuffle out in the end. Because what is it? The Lux points? No, these are the Lombard points. Babylon Corn, which I'm kind of excited about, to be honest. Symbiotic, EtherFi, Forever Season. I think it's Veda. Yeah, and then, so there's so many points happening here. Those should be non-zero when actualized eventually. And so all those things are just, to me, at this point, icing on the cake. I think my thesis for a while has been, I'm no longer point farming. I'm a real yield farming plus points.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the way it should be. I mean, like I said, I think people have become a bit more sophisticated over like this point-a-palooza marathon the last like 2 years. The thing is also some of these protocols that are coming out that haven't been, they have these products, like Symbiotic, Corn. Well, Corn is technically out. I don't think they have a token, but I mean, the promise of the future token in a bull market scenario where, these protocols can potentially have more than a couple 100 million TVL. I mean, that's what everyone is like hoping for, right? So these protocols are successful, and that translates into a token that you can then, have your exit liquidity in the future on.
Right, exactly. Now, one question that I had for you guys is, what does the future of the yield strategies look like? So right now, I'm pretty surprised you already have Pendle integrations, which is really cool, and Zero Lend, which is like I don't want to say exotic, but maybe like less known lending market. It's huge, but it's not like Aave or Compound. So you clearly have the ability to go semi-quick to market with some of these other protocols. Where are you looking next?
Yeah, the way I would explain it is, like, for example, if you go to DeFi Llama and you search specifically for like one asset that you want to earn yield on, let's say for like LBTC, our goal is to have always top 3 highest yields on DeFi Llama for that specific asset. And the way we can achieve this is through our multi-strategy infrastructure. The go-to-market there is also to integrate our smart contracts with centralized exchanges, custodians, and wallets. We've built this protocol, this infrastructure, using the 4626 because we wanted to include other 4626 protocols, but also non-4626 because we have a pretty like ninja engineering team that can create very sophisticated DeFi strategies and then basically offer them through our own. So smart vaults can be deployed really fast. We spent the last 2 years integrating every protocol that we thought would have legs in, by the next like bull run. So including Pendle. Pendle was like, off the radar for a long time, but we saw, speculative yield markets, not only with Pendle, but I mean on Timeless, which didn't necessarily, succeed. But I mean, we took a look at everything. We obviously are DeFi degens from Vaultcraft, and we're always looking for the highest yield. But the thing is, we want sustainable yield. We want safe yield. more protocols that we're integrating into the future, I would say we've kind of dialed down on wrapping any of these things. I think right now we have so many, let's say, products that we can create using the protocols that we've wrapped already. And that's basically like the playbook right now, is to release more products like LBTC, integrate them with centralized exchanges, like which we already have with OKX, Binance Web3, Gate Web3, whichever centralized exchange is a Web3 wallet. Kind of do like rinse and repeat. And I would say the exciting thing about Vaultcraft also is the fact that this OBCX token can be used to farm in addition to all these like smart vaults. And I think, that's something that not necessarily the market has like realized yet, but like if you take a look at our Dune dashboard, we've made basically like north of like 4 million revenue from like WETH, from users exercising, and we have like a very low TVL comparatively to like the big dogs out there. So the ratio of revenue to TVL is really high, significantly higher than like any other protocol. And I think right now let me put it this way: we spent most of this year kind of under the radar, building, auditing, fixing bugs, and now we're heavily going to market.
I mean, so yeah, I'm looking at the Vaultcraft dashboard. Correct me if I'm looking at the wrong one. But that is, wait, let me share it. This one.
That is it. That is correct.
Awesome. So you guys have generated, I was looking at your revenue numbers. The revenue numbers were really high. And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a 1% management fee for these vaults. Is that standard, or is that just on the LBTC vault?
That's just on the LBTC vault. I would say going forward for the multi-strategy vaults, because they do require management, we will be administering a 1% management fee on all future vaults going forward. Some of the vaults will have no management fee. So if you go to our compound smart vaults, they have no management fee. So those are basically free. But we don't manage them. Those are single auto-compounding auto-compounding compound markets. LBTC requires some work. We look at the market. We use our internal dashboards to assess what we need to be doing basically in real time. But yeah, this dashboard gives you a walkthrough of like how many users or how many like VCX holders are there, but how much also revenue we've earned from OBCX redemptions. So it's pretty.
So VCX entitles you to a portion of the fees earned by the protocol?
No, we have not implemented that. So VCX is a governance token.
Okay.
So the way we split it out is we have VCX, OBCX, Vote Escrow, VCX. VCX is a governance token that allows you to vote on any protocol updates, treasury management decisions. Vote Escrow allows you to vote on emissions for the smart vaults, and OBCX is the call option token.
Okay, okay, got it. And so the revenue generated by the protocol does not currently have any attachment to the governance token.
No, it's just a governance token.
So when you stake the token, is that just for the Vote Escrow rights?
So when you get Vote Escrow VCX on Vaultcraft, that's a bit different from Curve. With Curve, you have CRV. You stake CRV for Vote Escrow CRV, and you can lock stake it for up to 4 years. With us, you need to pair it with WETH. And the reason why we did this is because we want to incentivize liquidity into balancers. So if you go on CoinGecko or on CoinMarketCap right now, we only have one market up. And we did this strategically because we wanted to incentivize liquidity into that pool. So users LP into the balancer pool, they lock on the protocol for up to 4 years, and then they get Vote Escrow VCX, which allows them to vote on emissions of OBCX per smart vault.
And there's a yield associated with this. So I'm looking at like VCX staking, and it's up to 25%. Now I'm assuming that's all those emissions are coming from VCX, or in the form of VCX or OVCX.
Exactly. And the longer you stake, the more governance power you get as well.
Right. And here you're getting STVCX as the output token, which is not VEVCX. So
yes, that technically is another token, and also we're exploring what we can do in terms of the composability there as well.
I was going to ask if it's composable, because if it is composable, then you can go and use it. in the grand realm of DeFi Legos. Whereas VCX, you would imagine, is going to be a non-composable asset or non-transferable.
Exactly, it's non-transferable.
Okay, so staking does not get you voting rights, but you can lock for voting rights. Staking gets you yield. Locking gets you vote. Okay. Whew. Got it.
And also, we tried to explain this as best as we can in the docs. I think it does a really good job and kind of like simplifying it for everything. We even have like an instruction manual on the homepage of the dApp that you can open, and it walks you through basically how to farm the protocol as well.
See, the reason I do AMAs is so I can ask you instead of read the docs. It's really just laziness. So one of the questions I was going to ask is, you guys have all of these money markets integrated with your protocol, but I haven't seen a ton of leverage. Now, I'm wondering if that's due to risk or liquidation risk, or if there's a reason why you're not, say, like, max leverage longing the PT LBTCs in this vault on Vaultcraft or some other sort of more degen strategy.
Yeah, it's definitely a call that we made internally. I mean, specifically for LBTC, right now I think like the returns that you could get based on the amount of risk or borrowing that you would do for these type of products would be too high. So I wouldn't say a risk averse protocol in terms of like the types of yield or smart vaults that we offer, but it's definitely been we are conscious of like leverage, kind of, making people get wrecked.
Sure.
So we try not to offer so many like leverage products, but that might change in the future.
Okay, and then what is the future of strategy relationship? Do you imagine that your own proprietary team is going to be launching the majority of the strategies in like the near future, and like, or do you plan on onboarding very specific already DeFi integrated strategists, or do you think that the open source model, permissionless model, is going to be where you guys focus in the future?
Right now, our business model basically offers, what we do is we offer like a white glove service for primarily like DeFi protocols or funds that want to build these like custom type products. When we had originally launched, we built this tool called the VCI that walks you through how to deploy one of these smart vaults like very fast. So you just choose an asset, you choose a protocol, you change the parameters, edit the parameters like performance, management fees, and you can deploy the vaults very, very fast. What we found, just in terms of usage of, let's say, like the protocol, was it was more like B2B, let's say, like focused, where people would approach us or organizations would approach us asking us to deploy these vaults because, not only do we know how to build these type of products, but it was also like our infrastructure was audited. And so that kind of like naturally evolved into us creating a white glove business model that offers to build these type of vaults, which also kind of relies on partnerships, and that also, is sort of like dependent on incentives. And so a lot of things that we do right now is very much dependent on like what kind of like rewards we build on top of these vaults and how we can integrate them into third parties.
You've dropped a ton of alpha here today, and one thing is that there's going to be more of these multi-strategy vaults coming out. I know you said you want to kind of be the top yielding vault that shows up on DeFi Llama when someone's looking at an asset. But is there anything you can kind of tease to us, like what we can look forward to? Obviously today the launch of the LBTC vault, which is very incredibly exciting. What else is on the horizon? Can we look forward to more BTC vaults, ETH vaults, stable coins? What kind of direction are you guys thinking in?
I could say stablecoin vaults. I mean, I can also say there's different protocols that we've partnered that we'll be releasing vaults for as well. I think I can say, more vaults on Frax, more vaults to be listed on OKX Web3. Looking to integrate our contracts with Binance Web3. There's also like some pretty large node operators that are looking to get involved, more so on the restaking side, and several ABS providers as well that are getting involved. There's a lot going on internally right now with Vaultcraft, but the most exciting products that we have coming out are very stablecoin related, but also that capitalize on restaked rewards as well. So trying to provide to the market is a safety first DeFi protocol that offers the highest yields. And we can do this with our multi-strategy infrastructure. We have a very seasoned team that's been around in TradFi and DeFi for 30 plus years right now. So in terms of like generating yield and being audited and safe, we're definitely the go-to protocol right now. And I think like right now there's obviously several like vault providers out there that are doing the same thing. I think for us, the caveat is that, we have these call option tokens. There's no other vault protocol that is doing the, whole curve emissions, but with option tokens. And what I can say about the option tokens is that users or several users of the protocol are literally farming like thousands of dollars in OVCX like a day because they know exactly how to like arbitrage instantly on Balancer. I mean, if I'm being as transparent as I possibly can here, there's like a handful of OVCX users that are like have become professionals in the protocol, and they're really the ones that are driving most of the revenue for Vaultcraft. But I mean, our goal is to obviously educate more of the DeFi ecosystem on how that whole system works. So the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys today and we're having this conversation, that is definitely the special feature of Vaultcraft that I think really separates us from the rest.
Well, thank you so much for the overview of this. And I just wanted to have one last bit of, I guess, line of questioning is there are some ridiculous APRs on these things up here. And I wanted to understand sort of what these APRs represent and how a person would go about farming them. So granted, medium TVL size, so like, between 50K and 150K, but outsized APRs. Now, are these APRs dramatically in OVCX? This is where the sort of VCX pool arbitrage happens, or how would a person understand that?
Exactly. So, I mean, the way I guess you can interpret these high APRs right now, so there's 602% for like the VCX LP. The reason why is because there's only 120K deposited into the vaults, but there's a tremendous amount of emissions coming out that week. So if you actually go to the boost page, if you click on the burger icon on the top right corner, and then you scroll down, so you click on boost and scroll down.
Okay.
Yeah, and you scroll down, then you can see the emissions that are being distributed to all the different smart vaults every week. So specifically for the VCX LP, I think there's 1.2 million OVCX that's being distributed right now. So obviously the APR is calculated using like the dollar equivalent. So users or depositors of that vault are earning a tremendous amount because, there's that little, let's say, liquidity in the vault right now. So that's the reason why some of these APRs are really crazy. And there's a lot of OVCX emissions that are coming out every week. So we started, when we deployed the contract, we started at 2 million OVCX per week. That was back in last December, and we deployed the contract for 10 years. So we actually have emissions for 10 years where there's a linear decay of OVCX. And roughly, I think there's like 1.8 million that's coming out right now every week.
Okay, now, one of the things that I was wondering about is you have like this Vault APR and then Boost. Is the your Boost portion, is that what the individual user will get based off of how much VCX they have? Or is that at max Boost what they would get?
Right, so if you have no vote escrow VCX, you're getting the minimum boost. So if you hover, let's say if you hover over the VCX LP boost, you can see the breakdown.
Okay, so it says like 503 Vault APR. Is that the Vault APR that anyone could get right now without any boost?
Yeah, exactly. So your boost is 99% because you have no like vote escrow. But if you were to lock up your vote escrow for 4 years, you'd be getting 496. Again, the reason why it's so high is because there's so many emissions being distributed to the VCX LP token. I think like several weeks ago, there was quite significantly more on TVL into that vault, but the remaining users that are farming this are getting really high OVCX. And again, this ties into our revenue. So like these users that are earning OVCX are redeeming their OVCX
for WETH or OP.
Exactly.
Awesome, really cool. And then there is also another mechanism where those earned revenue tokens are then used to repurchase VCX. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a buyback and burn program where we use most of the revenue to buy back VCX in the pool. And so if you take a look at the chart for VCX, like from December to June this year, it was pretty much like up only. And then it kind of, went down a little bit, and now it's trying to ticking back up. But I mean, it's very much the pool that we have for this specific token is designed optimally for like OBCX redeemers. So like the liquidity is been going up and going down. It's very much based on like how much incentives are being distributed to the pool. But yeah, that's basically the system.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the overview. Are there any last pieces of information that you want to expose us to before closing this out?
I would for sure take advantage of, if you have wrapped Bitcoin, or if you have any crypto that you want to deposit into the LBTC vault for Bitcoin exposure and get 18% yield, that's definitely not going to last that long. But we have this Pointapalooza. We have OBCX tokens that you can redeem and get a instant return on. I think being on here is sort of like our first sort of marketing ploy to get people familiar with Vaultcraft. So for sure, the liquid Bitcoin Smart Vault is a very lucrative product that we're excited to release and integrate with more third parties as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here and explaining Vaultcraft. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Or where can they find you?
You can find me on Discord. I'm MishaOX. I'm MishaOX on X as well, and on Telegram.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.